Hello, beautiful perception trainers people. I am so excited to be here to bring you another video this week. And yeah, this is a video that I'm really happy to make. And it's something that I want you to know that I'm going through this too, okay? And really truly, all of these videos that I make, I am sharing with you my personal experience more than anything. And so I really want to just make it clear that like I'm not a spiritual guru. I'm not above or different than anybody else out there. I'm simply someone who's really obsessed with how life works and why we're in pain and why we suffer the way we do, because I have suffered a lot. And I don't mean that in a comparative way, right? Like I feel that everyone on the planet suffers a lot. We're all suffering. I don't know that, humanity is suffering, yeah? And so I don't want to compare my suffering to anybody else's suffering, because I don't think that that's useful. But it's just to say that I have a specific interest in why we suffer and how we as a humanity can start to move towards a more harmonious experience. And so when I share these videos and when I share these insights, it's really coming from a place of just personal experience. I'm just sharing with you what I've been through. And so really truly just, as an offering to everyone, because I know that we're all in this together. There is no separation, okay? And I just really want to say that we're all in this together. We're all going through this together. I am right where you are right where I am. We're not at different places. And if we can just kind of start to see that there is really no hierarchy in humanity, that we're all just going through the same stuff. We're all just going through the same suffering in different ways. And that's what makes us unique, but that's what connects us. That I think we can take the pressure off ourselves, yeah? That we really don't need to be comparing ourselves to other people, or my suffering is worse or better or less, or I'm more enlightened, or we're all just figuring it out together, okay? And so, I just hope that it can come across that I'm just sharing from my heart, and that I hope that this resonates with you and maybe can provide some insight that I've gained, and if not, that's great too. But we're all in this together, and I'm just here with you, and I'm just right beside you, okay? So in today's video, I really want to share an insight that has been something that's been on my mind for a really long time, obviously, and that is something that I have deeply struggled to accept and to come to terms with. And right, even with all the self-love that I preach, I understand, and I hope that we all understand, that we have some very hardcore programming, most of us, that blocks us from seeing what we don't see, right? Like that there are always going to be things that we're not even seeing, that we're not seeing, that we're not doing, that we don't know that we're not doing, that we are doing, that we don't know that we're doing. And it is this continual slow process of awakening to just simply what is actually occurring versus the stories that we're telling ourselves. Coming into what reality actually is right now, and then processing that, dealing with that, actually taking in the information from the true reality that exists, not the reality we want to exist. That is the awakening process, okay? So we all kind of have these we're like twice removed from reality, right? We have these traumas, and we have these limiting beliefs, and we have these coping mechanisms, and we have these things that are taking us outside of reality. And then we have our lack of awareness of them, yeah? Because a lot of us got these things in childhood. We got them from day one. They're just normal to us. So to even be aware, yeah, that you're doing something, that you're believing something that isn't true, that you're experiencing trauma, that you're coping instead of living, that you're suffering is due to something that you're doing. Yeah? In order for us to really see that a lot of the time, it's like if you've never seen the color purple, when you go out into reality and you see it, you might not ever, you won't register, right? There will be many purple things around you and you just won't even register that that's there because it doesn't mean anything to you. You don't have a context for it. And so I think that that's like the main thing I want to get across, is that this awareness and this awakening journey that we're all on is tough, okay? Because again, we are programmed to see what we see. We're programmed to perceive the reality the way that we're perceiving it. And this questioning work that we have to do to really become truly aware of all of our false beliefs is really, really a process for a lot of us, and especially for me. So like, I want you to know, right? Like I say, any negative emotion is showing us where we're believing something about ourselves or about the reality that isn't true. But for so many of us, to even be aware that we're in a negative emotion, to even be aware that we're feeling something, and then to not blame ourselves or to go into some sort of story about why that negative emotion is occurring and how to get rid of it, right? So like I say, for most of us, we can scapegoat to self-hate, self-blame. If I wasn't so fat, if I wasn't an alcoholic, if I wasn't alone, if I had a better job, if I was doing this, if I was doing that, I'd be happy, right? My negative emotion is coming from some sort of circumstance. Or it's my fault that I feel this way and I shouldn't feel this way. Or, right, there's something wrong with me that I feel this way. That my anxiety, my depression, my sadness, my anger, my frustration, it's not warranted based on what I'm experiencing. So I'm wrong and I shouldn't feel this way. Yeah, like all of that is something we have to like work through to even get to being able to sit with our emotion, to see what it's actually telling us. So the first thing that I want to really impart in this video, okay, is that, again, everything that you're experiencing has a reason why it's there, okay? Every emotion, every struggle, every trauma, every trigger, everything that's happening with you has a cause. Nothing is there for no reason, all right? And if we can start, so if we really start to own that, okay? There's nothing happening with you that shouldn't be happening. That's really what this is to say. That you have been through something, either in your actual physical lifetime, right? Or something you inherited, or something that's going on with you. Something that happened to you, something that is happening to you. There is a cause for all of your suffering. Nothing is there for no reason. There is a cause for every emotion, every thought, every coping mechanism, every scapegoat. So if there's any part of you that's thinking like, I shouldn't be suffering this much, I shouldn't be feeling this way, I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing, I shouldn't be coping the way that I'm coping, I shouldn't need these things that I need, that is a false belief, okay? That is a huge false belief that every single one of us as a humanity needs to face and understand, that we're holding ourselves back because of that. So here's the main insight and the main key and the main thing of this video, of what blocks us from moving forward. And it's this: none of us are willing to accept where we are. None of us are willing to accept that how we feel is how we feel, and that there's a reason that we feel this way. That if we're really truly as depressed as we feel, really truly as anxious as we are, really truly as feeling just as emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually unwell as we feel, that it is not because we did something wrong, or we're perceiving something incorrectly, or we're weak, or we are overblowing things, or we're blah, blah, blah. There's a reason for it, okay? And so many of us have such a huge fear of actually accepting where we're at, because we all really truly believe that if we are to accept where we really are, to really truly accept the pain that we're in, the suffering that we're in our physical bodies, in our mental bodies, in our emotional bodies, in our spiritual body. Because we don't feel like we have the solution right here, right now, right? Because again, most of us don't really understand why we're suffering so much, right? We make it about the body, we make it about our job, we make it about our relationships, we make it about this or that. But in truth, humanity itself is suffering for massive reasons, right? There is so much that we have broken ourselves against. There is so much that we are thinking is true that isn't. There is so much about how we are trained to be as people that is soul crushing. And because we were born and raised into this environment and know nothing different, most of us don't have anything to compare this to. So we're going to say, of course, if this is how it is, right, I shouldn't be suffering so much in just normal life, because it's just normal life. What's wrong with me, right? Other people seem to be doing fine. They're not suffering as much as me. Why am I suffering so badly? It must just be because my body or my work or my job or something. We want to place it on something specific. We get a little neurotic and coping mechanism about something. Either that or we use, like I say, a coping mechanism. We use our drugs, we use alcohol, we use distraction, and then we think like, why do I need to be addicted to these things? Why can't I get control of my eating? Why can't I get control of my drinking? Why can't I get control of my social media addiction? Why can't I get on top of myself? Well, yeah, because at the end of the day, we are all far more traumatized than most of us are letting on. We are all living in a world that is far more out of alignment with what would be supportive of a human being than we want to give ourselves credit for. And so the reason none of us want to acknowledge where we actually are is two reasons. Number one, we don't have an awareness of how far outside of true thriving we are, because none of us have seen true thriving in our lifetime. We have nothing to compare what we're going through to, right? If you're someone who's always been depressed and you don't actually know what it feels like to feel happy, you might just get to a place where you think this is what life is. And you probably just assume this is what everyone else feels like. And this must just be how life is for everybody. You don't have anything to compare it to. So you're not triggered to question your thoughts because everything feels like shit to you, right? So you're not even aware of where the questioning work needs to start, right? So when I say every time you feel a negative emotion, there's a subconscious belief in there that's incorrect. It's out of alignment with reality. You're thinking, well, everything feels like that, right? So you're never triggered to question anything because it all feels like that. And this is what I'm saying, right? Is that in order to truly embrace where we are, we have to have kind of something to compare it to, which is this idea of living happily, having freedom, having joy in our experience. And for a lot of us, the suffering is so thick that we don't even remember having that. Like lots of us didn't even have a childhood like that, right? Like some people can go back to their childhood and think about what it was like to feel free and to feel like it was okay to be themselves and okay to be doing what they wanted to do, and that there was some turning point where life stopped being like that. But for a lot of us, we didn't even have that. And I'm one of those people. I have been one who has dealt with extremely negative emotions and not even being aware that I was in such a state of negative emotion, because it was just normal for me. It was just normal to be like that. It was just normal to feel low-level anxiety all the time. And it wasn't until I started to make some like massive changes in my life that I started to see that there was another way. And then that's the thing, right? So first thing, accepting and admitting where we actually are is very hard to do, right? But it is what is required to actually move forward, because in order to move forward, we have to only take what is the next most logical step for us. And if we don't acknowledge where we're at, if we want to believe we're way somewhere different than we are, like our suffering isn't as bad as it is, that our negative emotions aren't as bad as they are, that our traumas, right, that we're blowing it out of proportion. We're not actually as traumatized as we actually are. we might think we should be able to do this, this, and this, and this, right? Because I should be here based on what I think happened to me. This is where I should be mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So this teaching that I just took in, I should be able to do that. And then when you can't, you think, man, there's something wrong with me, that I can't do this meditation thing. I can't do this eating thing. I can't do whatever it is that this person just said I should do as a spiritual person or as a healing person or as an integrating person. Here's my tool, but I can't use it. There's something wrong with me. No, there's nothing wrong with you. It's that that tool is too advanced for where you actually are. But in order for you to learn where you actually are, we have to admit where we actually are. And in order to see that a lot of the time, it's incredibly difficult because we don't have anything to compare it to. Yes? So we need to really start to understand this, that it is our resistance to truly accepting where we're at that's stopping us from growing. Because again, when we don't acknowledge where we truly are, when we say I shouldn't be feeling as bad as I feel, I shouldn't be as triggered or as traumatized as I am, I don't really understand why I feel so terrible in life. Or again, even if it's like, isn't anxiety like this normal? Isn't depression like this normal? Maybe you don't even notice what you're feeling or how badly you're feeling, right? It's coming to terms with where we actually are and saying, okay, even if I don't understand why I am so traumatized, because my childhood seemed normal or what I went through didn't seem that bad compared to the average, compared to the rest of the world. I shouldn't be so traumatized. I shouldn't be so hurting. I shouldn't be so whatever. That's what we need to understand, is that it's because the rest of the world is so messed up that what we see as being normal is actually incredibly traumatizing. So if we can start to embrace the idea that if you're hurting really a lot and you don't think there's a reason for it, there is. You just don't see what that reason is. Yes, and this is why we tend to, again, not admit where we are. Because we don't have the answer. We don't have a quick solution. We don't have some beacon of hope that if I just lose the 10 pounds or get the other job or get the new relationship, I'm going to feel so much better. When we truly, for most of us, admit where we're at, it's kind of an admission of like hopelessness and helplessness, right? We're really afraid to embrace how deeply traumatized we are most of the time and how much we don't know about how we're going to get out of it. And that's why we continue to beat ourselves up and try these spiritual things and do these spiritual things and like, right, get on this meditation kick and then fall off, get on this diet, then fall off, get on this thing that thing that should help us, and then it doesn't work because we can't sustain it, we can't maintain it because it's too far away from where we actually are. Yeah? So we need to understand this, that if your spiritual teachings aren't moving you forward, if your spiritual practices aren't moving you forward, if your healing practices aren't moving you forward, it's because they're too advanced. You need to back up and start to say, okay, maybe I'm not acknowledging where I'm at. Maybe there's a whole bunch about where I'm at that I'm not even able to see right now, right? So when I go and sit in meditation, I just sit still with my emotions and all of this shit comes up. We need to start to say, okay, this is all here for a reason and I don't know why, right? So the other biggest thing that stops us from growing is not being willing to admit that we don't have the answer. We don't know how we're going to move forward. That it is overwhelming to admit how much we're hurting and how much we're suffering and how much we're traumatized. But I want to give you this. If you can just start to be with this idea that nothing that you're feeling or that you're experiencing is wrong. You're feeling everything that you're feeling for a reason. Second thing, you don't know what those reasons are. You were traumatized. You were handed a life that's so out of alignment with human nature that so much of your trauma, you've never known another way. It's not that we were born into this awesome, perfect thing and then slowly went away from it so we can just slowly make ourselves back to this familiar perfection that we used to have. No. We are moving towards a perfection that has never existed as a humanity. We are moving towards living in ways that support us, that are our true nature, that have never existed before. We are moving into unknown, untread, unseen territory. That is what we really need to understand about this healing journey. So if we can start to embrace that the healing journey does not require that we know where we're going, that we know the end goal, that we have a destination in mind. And if we can embrace our suffering where we're at right now and not make it mean because we don't know the answer, we don't really know what's going to make us happy, we don't really know the life that we're heading towards, and that's okay, that's not required. We don't have to know that in order to move forward, because all that is actually required to move forward is owning where we are. Because the second we own where we are, and the second we own that we don't know, that's when the next answer comes. And I know that that might sound a little bit magical and a little bit esoteric and a little bit woo-woo, but this is really truly how evolution happens, okay? So again, part of the reason why when we are trying so hard to do these spiritual practices or whatever it is that we're doing to try and heal ourselves, and we can't maintain it, we can't sustain it, it's because it's like we're trying to go from grade 1 to our PhD in one fell swoop. We can't do it. Okay? We can never maintain the PhD level from grade 1. There's too much information we are missing. Okay? And we need to understand that our journeys are going to lead themselves. This has been my experience. Every time I've been willing to just say, okay, I'm really suffering. I'm really hurting. I'm going to acknowledge my deeply felt negative emotions. I don't know what I'm believing that's wrong. I don't know what's causing it. I don't know why my body is acting like this. I don't know why my psychology is like this. I don't know why what this person said hurt me so much. All I know is that it did, all right? And I stopped judging myself for how hard life was for me or how I reacted to stuff, and stopped saying I shouldn't feel this way. I shouldn't be reacting this way. This shouldn't be so traumatizing. Or started acknowledging, okay, no, I really do feel shitty. This isn't a good, I'm not in the place of peace. I'm not at peace. I'm not in joy. And it's like this all the time. And I've tried everything that I know to do to make myself happy, and it's not worked. So I don't know what to do. I don't know what my problem is. I don't know what my traumas are. I don't really know why I am the way that I am. It's always been in that surrender that the next step has come. That something became like so blaringly obvious, like, oh my gosh, yes, of course, that next, right? I have been able to heal from being very deeply traumatized in my childhood. And again, like I said at the beginning of this video, maybe the one thing that makes me different from everybody else is that I have been able to actually integrate a lot of my traumas, learn from what was actually traumatizing me, and see, right? Oh, it's because I'm not supposed to live this normal life. I'm not supposed to do this normal thing. Everything that I've been told that I'm supposed to do as in the context of what's normal for everyone that I grew up with and everyone that everything else is doing, I was able to get an inspiration to do something totally radically different that I had never seen before. From going inside and admitting that I didn't know what to do. I stopped looking for the answer outside. I stopped trying to figure it out. And I just said, okay, I feel really shitty and I don't know what to do. I feel really shitty in my body and I don't know what to do. That's when the answer for this or that thing happened. For, and I mean, I just want to say it, right? Like, kind of my healing journey has been very miraculous if we really think about it. From where I came from like a small backwoodsy town in Alberta. And now I am traveling the world, living in Asia, eating a raw foods diet, like as a spiritual teacher on the internet. That's completely, like, there were no examples. I did not have any examples of this life that I'm living. So like even the awareness that I could do this wasn't available to me. There were no examples. There was nothing. I didn't look at anyone and think, oh, they're doing this life. I'm going to emulate that. There was no one to emulate. In my reality, there was no one to emulate. I got all of this idea and all this inspiration essentially from within through admitting I didn't know what to do. Okay? So becoming aligned to the place where I don't need to suffer as much as I was suffering before meant creating a life that I had no idea about as a child. that I had no idea about as a teenager, that I had no idea about as a young adult, right? If I could go back and tell my 18-year-old self what I was doing right now, she would be like, what do you mean? That doesn't make any sense. There's no way, like none of that is even on my radar. And so what I'm saying is the way that I got here was one step at a time, admitting I didn't know. Admitting where I really was, that I was really in pain and I had no option that I could see in my reality. Nothing felt like the right step. Nothing that anyone around me was doing felt like the right thing. So that's the next thing. If you're feeling like you're suffering and you've tried everything that everyone around you is doing, you've tried all the spiritual techniques, you've done it all and none of it worked for you, instead of saying, okay, there is no way out of my suffering, say now, no, the way out of my suffering is something I haven't seen yet. The way out of my suffering is something I haven't seen yet. Because again, we are not moving into something that's already been as a humanity. We are moving into something completely new, something that has never been before, which is going to require that we integrate the traumas that we're experiencing right now and understanding that we feel how we feel for a reason. That's information. That's what our traumas are. Trauma is where true reality and our version of reality don't match. Yes? And where our desire to create something that's never been before is coming up against our understanding of reality. So as we face our traumas, as we face our negative emotions, as we face our pain and own it for what it is, not make it wrong. That's the biggest key. As we own where we are. And don't make that mean, because I don't have the answer to how to get out of this, I'm going to be in this forever. This is why no one owns where they are. We say, no, I'm going to own where I am. We understand that it is actually in what we're in that the information about how to get to the next place exists. This is why we sit with our negative emotions. They will tell you how the reality actually functions, and you will have insight into creating a new thing that has never been done before, one step at a time. So you're probably not going to get this vision for this whole life that's this completely other thing than what you're living right now. You're going to get an idea to do one little thing different. You're going to own your suffering, own that you don't know what to do, and then be with the emotion, be with the feeling, be with the thoughts. Own where you are. And all the scariness that comes with that. And with that, you're going to start to see that your understanding of reality expands. Because it is through the trauma, the desire to create something, the desire to do something, the desire to be something that got met with a seeming reality that was against you, that you actually forced yourself to look at reality in a way that you don't understand it yet. Yes? You're forcing yourself to see a part of reality you don't understand yet. And then in processing that emotion, being with your feelings, acknowledging where you're at and not running and not making it wrong, making it right. Right? Even if I don't understand why I am so traumatized, I don't understand why this hurts so much, I don't understand why my emotions are so crazy, I don't understand why, I'm going to assume that it's right. That's when the information is going to be available to you. Because it is through saying this is wrong, I shouldn't be here, not acknowledging where you're at, that we block the information. That's what keeps us stuck. So we all think that by admitting where we are, we're going to get stuck, when it's exactly the inverse. When we admit where we are, we release our resistance to the information that is in what we're in, about how the reality functions, which will then give you insight into how to take the next step on your journey. And I don't know if I can say that any clearer. It is your desire that hurts right now. You're suffering because you have a desire to do, create, and be something that you've never seen before. That's why you're suffering. Because you have a desire to do, be, create, express, and be something you've never seen before. That you've been told you can't by all of your limiting beliefs from your parents and their parents and their parents. That's why we suffer, because we're living in ways that are not what we want to be doing. But then again, it's because we don't understand how reality functions. Because everything that we want, we can have, but we have to create it within the reality. So as we go to try to create what we want to create, without an understanding of the reality, it doesn't work. And then we create limiting beliefs that say, I can't have what I want. And now this thing is scary. And it's wrong and it's bad and I shouldn't do that. And this thing that I want or this thing that I am is wrong and bad. Instead of saying, no, no, no. It's just the reality. Hasn't evolved yet. I have to evolve it. So then we start to be with our traumas and our triggers and all of these things, saying, I don't know. I don't know where this is coming from. I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what I want to create. I don't even know what the desire is. I don't know. But I'm willing to admit that this is how I feel. In that, you're going to start to realize what you're actually blocking, what you're actually not seeing, how reality actually functions. And your next step will be revealed because you will understand something about the reality. It will just seem obvious. That's how it works. So you sit with your stuff. You admit where you are. You admit the pain you're in. You admit the suffering. You admit the unawareness. You admit the lack of love you have for you. You admit the lack of love you have for others. You admit the fear. You admit the anxiety. You admit the depression. You admit you don't know what it is you're wanting to create or do or be and what you're not seeing. You admit all of that. And then you sit and it will come. You will see it. You will start to see it because it's in that. It's in that. You've already experienced the information. It's just that when you went about trying to do what you wanted to do and it didn't work, rather than learning how the reality actually functions, you said, because it didn't work, reality is against me. That's your limiting belief. So you start to say, what if reality isn't against me? It just doesn't work the way that I thought it did. What if reality isn't against me? It just doesn't work the way that I thought it did. And I have something to learn here. My trauma is showing me where I have something to learn so that I can create what I want to create and so that I can even learn what I want to create. That's what this is. You are suffering because you want to create something that has never been before and you've built a limiting belief around it that it cannot be done because it didn't go the way you thought it should. Or you were told from childhood that you can't have it, you can't be it, you're not allowed to do that. Right? So like literally everything that you are is this creation. How you want to eat, how you want to sleep, how you want to live. It's not even just your job. It's like literally everything that you are is the expansion on consciousness. That's forcing you to understand how the reality actually works. So you follow every trauma into, okay, I acknowledge that this is how this feels. I acknowledge that I don't know. What am I not seeing? And then we sit with that and let it show you. Relax your resistance to the information you already have. Admit where you are. Admit you don't know. And then watch how you actually do know. Right? It's this paradoxical thing of letting go of this trying to figure it out because you don't have to figure it out. It's already there. Just admit when you feel how you feel. Admit when you're suffering how you're suffering. Admit you don't know that you don't know. Admit you don't understand your desire. Admit you're afraid to be who you are. Admit you don't understand what you want to create. And then just sit with that. Don't make it wrong. Just don't make it wrong. Every single time you allow yourself to not make something that's happening wrong, you will learn. You will expand. Okay? So that's the number one block. Is not admitting to ourselves where we are. The second we admit where we are, all the information we already have will come to us. Okay? So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, leave those down below. Like, share, subscribe, join the mystery school, do all that fun stuff. And I'll see you in the next video.